Once upon a time, in the Levant, there was a group of hunters and gatherers. As this group discovered richer lands, both in terms of raw materials and resources such as game and things of that nature, they became less and less nomadic. As the group became less nomadic, they gradually also took up a new popular form of living at the time, which was farming. Now, these incipient farmers had a rather unconventional journey to becoming incipient farmers as opposed to the hunters and gatherers they had previously been. Their journey to become incipient farmers began on a 3-week spiritual journey. The group of incipient farmers called themselves the Orontes. The Orontes had a habit of praying by the rivers in which they frequented. One day, Axius, the Orontes chief, was praying by the river when he had a very profound experience. In a prayer-induced trance, Axius encountered Alemus, the goddess of water. Alemus informed him that the Orontes were to settle at the Orontes River, the river in which Axius was currently praying at. She told him for 3 weeks she was going to watch him and the rest of the Orontes as they tried to achieve their farming objectives. And for 3 weeks, she told him, in their prayers, she had a poem for them to recite. Each week, they were to recite a different prayer. For the first week, the prayer that they were to recite was as follows. Settle by the river, along the bank, and your crops shall grow with yourself to thank. Keep up the hard work, rain or dry, or else your weakest link will be condemned to die. Unfortunately, at the end of the first week, one morning, as Axius awoke, he found his son's lifeless body washed up on the riverbank. That night, as various members of the Orontes tribe comforted Axius, he sat in despair. He wandered off alone to the riverbank and shouted into the sky, "Why? Why? Why did this have to happen to my son?" And shortly after he said that, Alemus descended upon him. Because, she stated, you did not keep up the hard work, and as a result, your weakest link was condemned to die. A horrible ending to week 1. Despite the death of Axius' son in week 1, week 2 began smoothly enough. The Orontes had really begun to get the hang of irrigation techniques, and their crops that they were going for were wheat and barley. Those were their favorite crops, and things were starting to run very smooth. As week 2 progressed, the Orontes used their heavy axes with light hearts to chop down trees around the Orontes River. That way they could create more space for their farming. During week 2, as Axius went to pray by the river, in his prayer-induced trance, he encountered Alemus. Alemus told him that there was a new poem that she wanted Axius and the rest of the Orontes to recite in their week 2 prayers. The poem was as follows. Irrigation is the key to your success. If you do not perfect it, your tribe will be a total mess. Barley and wheat is how you will be paid. Perhaps those crops will be valuable in trade. Keep up the hard work, rain or dry, or else your weakest link will be condemned to die. Unfortunately, this 3-week spiritual journey took another tragic turn at the end of week 2. One morning, Axius awoke to find another Oronte father holding his lifeless son in his arms, with tears in his eyes. As Axius approached, he realized that yet another Orontes child had passed. That night, after Axius consoled the distraught Oronte father, just as Axius himself had had to be consoled the previous week, he went and prayed alone by the Orontes River, as was custom by that point. As he prayed, he thought to himself, if one more Oronte dies during this time, during this 3-week period, I'm taking the whole group and we're leaving the incipient farmer lifestyle forever, and we're going back to being hunters and gatherers. During week 3, as Axius, the Orontes chief, was praying by the Orontes River, he encountered Elymas again. This time, as Elymas was aware of the fact that Axius was very, very close to taking the Orontes tribe away from the Orontes River and returning to the hunter and gatherer lifestyle, she had a few choice words for him. This is the most crucial week of all, she said. Elymas gave Axius the last of the 3 poems she wanted him to recite in his prayers, as this was the 3rd and final week. The 3rd poem was as follows. 2 weeks have gone by, and 2 people have had to die. Farming is our new skill, however, it takes a lot of will. Orontes at birth, Orontes at death, the smell of success is on my breath. Keep up the hard work, rain or dry, or else your weakest link will be condemned to die. Week 3 was fraught with tension among the Orontes tribe, as they were scared that someone was going to die that week. As someone had died the previous 2 weeks, everyone was on edge. On the final night of week 3, not a single Orontes in the entire tribe slept for more than 3 hours. When they awoke the next morning, no one was dead and everyone was happy. That night, as the Orontes tribe held hands in collective prayer, the entire tribe, for the first time at once, saw Elymas. Elymas congratulated the entire Orontes tribe and told them they had her blessing. And from that point on, they're going to survive and prosper as incipient farmers for all of eternity. And that is the story of the Orontes tribe.